Yeah, I think you have to, as a business person or owner or stakeholder, you have to kind of at this point, you have to basically say, listen, the days of analysis paralysis are over, and I may not have 100% visibility into what's going to happen, but the confidence that whatever I throw at AI monetarily or time wise is going to provide some return on my investment. It has to be at a high percentage rate, but more so than anything else.
Welcome to the show, where AI takes the floor. Leah Rich on the mic, ready to
Welcome to
explode.
the AI Guys podcast, where we make artificial intelligence easy to understand for everyone. I'm your host, Lee Dixon, and as always, I'm joined by the guy who needs no New Year's resolution, Rich Swire. How you doing today, man?
Good, man. That's impressive. That's an alliteration.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, after I messed up one of the recent other intros, I've just been looking myself in the mirror and be like, never again.
Yeah, that was professionally delivered. Congratulations. That was really nice.
Thanks, man. I
Yeah.
I do it for you. But
Yeah.
here we are coming into the close of 2025. And, obviously throughout the year that we've been doing this, we've talked a lot about different trends here and there. But I kind of wanted today to be able to kind of put a nice bow on what we've learned this year. Also, some things we're thinking coming into the next year should be on the minds of different companies. So I figure we can kind of dive into that, keep it short and sweet today, but talk about a few things people should have on their roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this year was, I think, the year of kind of understanding what the goal of these hyperscalers is going to be. They put a lot of money into, building out their data centers, and I think that's where most of the energy has been, forgive the pun, been used. As far as the first, what I would call chapter of the AI saga,
Yeah.
right? Because you read about it all the time, but no matter how much AI has been growing over the last year, there's still not enough capacity. There's not enough servers, enough chips. And so there's clearly still a lot of catch up that's been done by the Googles and the Amazons and the OpenAIs. And of course, that's what's obviously driving the value of like NVIDIA and other efforts that you read about. But I do think next year, I think you'll probably start seeing even more usage coming through, whether it's you work for a company or whether you own a company, or you'll start to, it'll start to trickle into some of your day-to-day work, right? So I think it obviously impacted our lives from a ChatGPT perspective, but it hasn't necessarily penetrated, the proverbial firewall into our businesses as of yet. I think the adoption cycle has been kind of slow on the business side, primarily because of obviously concerns around security, compliance. Maybe there's also concerns around, where is the best way we can use this and not waste a lot of money. The world is moving so fast. Do we jump on the moving train now, or do we wait 6 months and see where it pans out?
Yeah.
But I do think next year is probably going to be the first year where you have this kind of mandated, if you will, even though it may not be written down, but from top down and even bottom up, a mandate for companies to start to embrace AI, not just as a tool, I'm using ChatGPT to summarize my documents, or I'm using it to help me write my, marketing papers, but really, embed it intimately into their workflows, into the DNA of the business.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be what, one of the driving themes for next year.
Yeah. I think we're starting to already see it now, but it's absolutely going to become the standard, right? Is that autonomous agents are no longer experimental. Like, this is something that has to be in place. There needs to be, agents handling multi-step reasoning and, going across different systems, and really businesses owning that process is going to be a huge part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we work pretty intimately with all the different platforms, and obviously we've been with OpenAI for quite some time. And I would say that even what we're building and what we've kind of experienced with OpenAI, we're talking about functionality and features that are only months old that are kind of critical in order for you to do some of the use cases that we've talked about. Right. And so, you can't really say like, oh, why is it taking so long? The reality is it's still only been about a year of what I would consider like professional grade AI was even available. And it's probably only been about 6 months, maybe 3 months, that it's been available in a way that can be actually useful, right? The reasoning models definitely did change the game quite a bit. A lot of the infrastructure that OpenAI has created and Google has created, as well as Amazon, are pretty much fresh out of the box. And so people are still even kind of like tweaking it and finding errors and issues with all kinds of things that you need to have to build out what I would call an enterprise hardened solution. So, we're still very much in the beta state of application development. Even the new entries into code generation that have happened over the last 3 to 6 months have also kind of been very impactful on the news. Like, oh my God, look at this is such an amazing demonstration of what we can see. But there's still the practical matter of, okay, great, I'm generating code with AI, I'm doing a lot with AI, but then how does that translate into my existing process? How does that work with my existing development team? And so there's still the integration in the inertia that comes with how do we use this in our existing infrastructure without blowing it up, right? But you're probably going to see next year as well as like a second theme is you're going to start seeing your first cohort of AI startups. And I say that kind of to some degree facetiously because I know there's a lot of AI startups today. Sure. But I do think I would say that 95% of the startups that exist today are going to have and because they existed too early, I think there's going to be a higher churn rate and a higher failure rate there because what you're seeing the hyperscalers come in that have a lot more money and a lot more energy behind them. And they're going to
cull
crush
that entire.
Yeah. I mean, even like, for example, recently, Google just released their third version of Gemini, and they have a studio now where you can generate code and generate applications, and it's going to compete with like Lovable and Cursor and others. And quite honestly, I we use Lovable here, for example, but I'm kind of looking at the Google thing going, oh, all right, or maybe they had a good run.
Good thing Lovable got their $1 billion valuation.
It was nice while it lasted. But I don't see a world where, because of that intimacy, right? So now it's not about the actual Lovable versus Google in the sense of like giant versus exact Goliath kind of thing. David and Goliath story. It's more about the fact that Google can provide the vertical integration much easier than Lovable, right? Lovable doesn't own a database. They don't have a cloud. I know they released their recent cloud, but it's almost kind of like, okay, yeah, but you're not really a cloud scaled provider. So when you're talking about businesses who are already on the Google cloud or the Amazon cloud and they're using tools, they want it to be vertically integrated, right? I want to go into Google, and if I'm going to start prompt coding and vibe coding something, I want to basically click a button and be like, yeah, okay, spin up a database. And it just does it inside of the Google Cloud under my account in my secure environment. With Lovable and some other ones, although I think they're great and maybe they will find their niche, you have to kind of go outside of the box a little bit and go, oh, I'll integrate with Supabase, or I'll integrate I have to spin up a Postgres somewhere else if I need to keep it secure.
Yeah, it's not far off from what you're doing now, but there's going to be a consolidation of tools and systems.
Yeah, I mean, how do you compete with that, right? And then, on another point, like the video generation, like there's 1,000 video generation AI startups. I just don't see how they
exist.
Compete with, because you just don't have the throughput of something like a Google or even a Facebook to some degree, and an OpenAI, even the kind of science that's going behind it and the kind of investment that's going into that. That's just a hard horse race to win.
Sure.
So I think where some of those startups will pivot and find safe harbor in little niches. And I do think there is a ton of niches, by the way. But I don't know if they're going to be, I just don't see a warranted, what they're warranting as far as like valuations. I think they benefited from being first to market. They had this kind of really beautiful revenue ramp up, but I think that's just a matter of time before Google comes in or somebody else comes in and chops your head off, and then you flatline, because then people will have another thing to compare it against, and then basically
the accelerant of those hyperscalers, right? And like how well they make their product is going to be very different.
And switching from one coding tool to another when you're doing generative AI is like the switching costs are very minimal, and it's not that big of a deal. Like I toggled over this weekend and built something in Google's once they launched the Gemini thing, and I was like, oh, this is just like Lovable, but it's free. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
boy, that's gonna be hard. That's gonna be hard. Um, Another thing that I think is going to happen next year. So to number one, you know, we're going to see a huge amount of adoption in the business side, and it's going to really kind of boost us from an efficiency perspective.
Mhm.
I think across the board. Number two, I think you're going to see a lot of AI companies start, and you're going to see a lot of AI companies die.
Mm.
I think instead of thinking of it like a bubble popping, I think there's going to be kind of a transfer of the bubble. It's
Mm.
like another bubble will open, and then one will pop.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like blowing bubblegum bubbles, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I think, which is something that maybe is kind of an obvious statement, is I do think there's going to be this a new emergence of AI services.
Mhm.
Because what I think is happening is that you have a tremendous amount of energy and focus on building out the tech stack right now, the chips, the servers, the software itself, the
Yeah.
agentic platforms, the frameworks. There's a tremendous amount of focus on that, right? It's kind of building this layer of like, okay, guys, we got everything teed up for you. Now you can go out and build agentic stuff. But what's missing is, okay, who's going to do that,
Mm.
right? Like, not everybody's familiar with the new kid in the block, right?
Mhm.
They're not too familiar with understanding prompting or prompt engineering or system prompts or integration, AI, agentic workflow. This is all new,
Yeah.
right? Most developers are on this side of the fence, and also from a domain expertise, the business people are not too familiar with it. They're used to using SaaS products that are mostly just form fills, search query, kind of very lame, stagnant
Right.
entities. And now they're in this dynamic conversational dialogue world, and they're seeing all the possibility with that. But that's not an easy transfer either.
Mm.
Like, if you're like over here used to using, NetSuite or Intercom or some other support system, right, in the business
Yeah.
world, and you have to now you have this ability to go over here and be agentic, you're kind of going like, okay, what's that transfer look like, and who helps me make that transformation?
Right.
Because it's not just like going from one SaaS to another, download, upload, move over. It's a complete transformation. So I think there's going to be this rise of the service providers that are going to help, companies make that transition
Mm.
easier. And within there, I think they're going to build out. It's going to kind of create this kind of new industry that is kind of not too dissimilar to when you had to move from legacy systems to the web-based systems.
Mm.
But although that was really more of a technical problem, I think this was a business transformation. This is almost like going back to where the computer was invented. It was almost like going from paper
Yeah.
to this brand new
Digital
dramatic
piece.
100x thing that's sitting on my desktop that can run spreadsheets 100 times faster than I used to be able to do on paper.
Right.
And since nobody was really alive, or nobody's alive today that went through that, it's almost like we have to re-understand and relearn what it means to do what I would call fundamental transformation. I don't think we as a society, at least my generation, I don't think we've ever had to go through that,
Mm.
where it's literally not, okay, yeah, I could get it. It's a business process thing, and we're going to write up some documents and hire maybe a consultant. They're going to come
Yeah.
in and they're going to talk about, they're going to have meetings, and it'll happen over the course of years. We're talking about like fundamental new underwriting of how we operate as human beings within a business environment. And it's almost like everything that we have up until today, you can just throw it out, right? Not literally throw it out, because you still have to use it to run your business, but like throw it out in the sense of as a precursor to where we're going.
Sure.
It's meaningless. It's essentially just a system of record.
Yeah. Well,
right.
There's this concept too that, I mean, every business essentially becomes like an AI training company in a way, right? Like just for their products and the things that they have, but also training like their users and the businesses they support with it. Like, there's this concept that a generic co-pilot that we've all kind of been using as the superpower for the last 12, 18 months is going to kind of fade away, right? And these industry trained agents are going to take over. So I don't think you're far off from this. It's completely life-changing from a business perspective on a scale that we've never seen before.
Yeah, because you have to really redefine your job, right? What if your job is a support tech, well, your job was I wake up, I have coffee, I answer tickets all day, I go home.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's I wake up, have coffee, I go in, see where the AI screwed up, make some adjustments, retrain the AI, make sure it's now smarter than it was yesterday. and then handle anything that's an exception or that's been escalated.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer, you know,
Just a lemming in the
touch.
process. Yeah.
I'm managing an AI, and then while in my spare time, I'm creating another AI that's going to do something else, and then essentially I'm going to be managing an agentic workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing goes in any business, right? Any business role, you're going to shift to the right, and you're going to be able to do a lot more the farther you shift,
Yeah.
right? The more agents you have under you, and the bigger the workforce you manage,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's going to, and your output is going to increase from that. Ultimately, it's going to change the way that you look at your business. So I do think that people are kind of going, I think they're thinking of things chicken and egg or cart before the horse a little
Sure.
bit. I think they're thinking this is a technology revolution, and it certainly is by all definition, because AI is somewhat of a disruptive technology. But I think it's the biggest kind of disruption we've seen, which means it kind of it's very jarring for businesses, because this is not just yet another upgrade of technology.
Right.
This is a complete rewrite and a retransformation of basically saying, all right, we got to tear this thing down to the studs
Mm-hmm.
and reimagine what this is going to look like in 10 years. And that is a harder ask of the economy, right? That's a harder ask of a CEO or of a manager of a support team or a sales team.
Yeah.
Because it really is kind of cutting at the core and making them feel naked. And I think that is something that I think the next year people are going to realize that is the thing is holding people up. And even I think even the hyperscalers might even get involved in this, in the sense of they might do things like provide and build out a training or build out a certification or completely create a whole new division in their business,
Yeah.
which is really about AI adoption and AI transformation.
Yeah.
I'm sure the consulting companies will jump on the train, if they probably already have. We get documents all the time from like E&Y and Anderson, all
Right.
these other highfalutin type consultants. But I do think at a ground level, people are going to, our companies are going to realize like, hey, I can't do this alone. I got to find a partner.
Mm-hmm.
I got to bring somebody in who understands this world and can focus on this transformation, because I can't do nothing. And I also can't rip everything out by its roots.
Right.
And so it might take me 2, 3, 4 years, but I have to start now. Right.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of the three things next year that are going to kind of, I think, define that year.
Yeah.
High adoption, high value on the business side. Obviously, you can expect the models to get better. AI is going to obviously make some really cool stuff, and the hyperscalers are going to continue to invest. But I think the entry of the serious use cases, I think, is going to be the big highlight of next year.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. And I think businesses that, have been early adopters in AI obviously have an advantage in a lot of this way. But, the goal now for most businesses that are either getting into it or have been doing something and it feels good, but they really don't have any way to track that, like understanding what the KPI is for a business right now around their AI process is going to be a big piece to like know how fast they can go. Because it's not going to be just I think I might dabble in this and try it out. Like that's kind of what 2025 was for a lot of businesses. 2026 is going to really show who the major players are that are using it and who might feel like they're getting in at the right time, but they're like stepping into, again, cycles now that feel like they're happening almost every other week sometimes with this stuff, which is a lot to take on when you haven't been in the fray of it.
Yeah, I think you have to, as a business person or owner or stakeholder, you have to kind of, at this point, you have to basically say, listen, the days of analysis paralysis are over. And I may not have 100% visibility into what's going to happen, but the confidence that whatever I throw at AI monetarily or time wise is going to provide some return on my investment.
Yeah.
It has to be at a high percentage rate, but more so than anything else. And I would say to every business, look at this as like your next hire. I would just say, look, if you're looking at a minimum, if you're looking at really kind of taking the foot off the brake and really leaning forward into AI, just think of AI, find a partner, find a solution that's going to fit your needs, and then expect just to pay what you would pay one employee, and just know that employee is probably going to work out pretty well. But it doesn't necessarily, what you hire that employee for in January may not necessarily end up what they're doing mostly in August, but that's like any other employee, right?
Right.
They might find more ROI or more capability in a different role in the business, but get them in your business, get them trained up,
Yeah.
let them understand what you're doing, and let's see what's possible. And that might be your best performing employee by the end of the year.
Yeah, man. Love it. And for everyone that's listening, thanks again for joining us on this episode. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to stay in touch. Also, check out our Substack, for more content, which we linked to this episode to continue this discussion. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Air takes the floor, leaving rich on the mind, ready to explode.